The film begins in sunlit Brazil, where U.S. Army Green Beret Louis Stevens completes his service. During his time, he masters capoeira, a martial art that fuses dance, music, and acrobatics. Training hard and connecting with the culture, Louis finds discipline and purpose through capoeira. Back in Miami, Louis visits his old high school, now overrun by gangs, graffiti, and metal detectors. In a restroom, he catches a student trying to buy drugs and shakes his head at how far things have declined. In class, teacher Mr. Kerrigan struggles to teach evolution. The students ignore him completely.
Charles Darwin's theory, natural selection. We went over all of this material yesterday.
Yo, Kerrigan.
Lewis, watching through the door, sympathizes. When the students leave, he walks in to greet Kerrigan. They catch up, and Lewis says he's back after 4 years, hoping for a fresh start. As they walk, Kerrigan explains how bad things have gotten, even pointing out a stairwell gated off due to overdose-related falls.
Too many kids are getting high, thinking they were Superman. Janitors got tired of scraping them off the floor.
Over lunch, Kerrigan admits he feels like a zookeeper. Lewis reminds him of the good he once did, but Kerrigan insists today's kids are lost. 75% are armed, nearly half are high, and most come from broken homes.
Well, what about those 12%?
What about the peasants?
Disappointed, Louis walks away until a fight breaks out nearby over drug money.
There's a little family problem here, Teach.
Louis tells the aggressor to back off. The man calls it a family matter, but Louis isn't having it. Tension builds as students gather, sensing a fight.
First of all, I ain't a teacher.
Before anything escalates, Kerrigan steps in, but someone shoves Louis, triggering a swift capoeira response. He takes a few hits, but quickly dominates the scene, impressing everyone with his fluid, acrobatic moves. Afterward, Kerrigan proposes Louis as a possible mentor. He argues that if the kids paid attention during a fight, maybe their energy can be redirected. Staff laugh off the idea. Some say teaching martial arts to violent teens is reckless. Others question Louis' qualifications. As Louis starts to leave, Diana, another teacher and former classmate, speaks up. She recalls how Louis changed for the better thanks to Kerrigan, and now he wants to help others. The principal reluctantly agrees to give Louis a chance. Outside, Louis thanks Diana, but she keeps things professional.
Hey, Diana, whoa. I just wanted to say thanks.
I just don't think that my support was based on anything other than those kids.
Later, Louis and Kerrigan visit an abandoned firehouse they plan to convert into a capoeira training center for 12 troubled students. It's a mess, but they begin cleaning. The next day, a bus drops off the kids.
You must be kidding.
Suspicious and aggressive, the students are more used to fights than discipline. Louis observes silently. A school officer drops off their records. The principal warns Louis not to let him down.
I'm sticking my neck out for you. Do not make me look like a fool.
Kerrigan introduces Louis as a former student in Green Beret. Inside, the kids goof off and climb on fire trucks. One of them, Orlando, starts stirring trouble.
What? Turn it off. This is a class. It's Mr. Lewis Stevens.
Listen up!
Kick his ass later.
Louis asks the student with the boombox to raise the volume and starts demonstrating the ginga, the foundation of capoeira. The kids laugh and mock him with exaggerated dance moves.
It's pretty funny, doesn't it? Huh?
Yeah, man, very.
He plays a Brazilian capoeira track and urges them to stay open-minded.
Hey, man, turn that voodoo music off.
Their teasing continues until Orlando complains about the noise and moves to turn off the music. But Louis grabs the radio first. Orlando pulls a knife and swings, but Louis dodges and counters with impressive moves, easily overwhelming him. The students watch in awe. Orlando is embarrassed but unhurt. Louis takes the knife and ends class, telling them to come tomorrow in loose clothes, barefoot, and ready to ginga. As they leave, Louis asks Orlando's name. Orlando insults him. Louis asks if he wants his knife back, but the kid stays cocky. Kerrigan steps in and notes Orlando shouldn't have had a knife at all.
And he has no business carrying that knife in the first place.
Lewis returns it and reminds Orlando about dress code. Afterward, Kerrigan warns that Orlando has a violent record and a cousin, Silverio, who runs a powerful gang. Louis says trust must start somewhere. Later, Donovan, the radio kid, asks to borrow the capoeira tape.
You have a name?
Yeah. Donovan. Donovan.
Louis gives it to him, showing trust. That night, he reads the kid's files, eager to understand and help, not just with hope, but with method and patience. The next morning, Donovan returns with the radio and a new remix of the capoeira track.
I ran your tape through a MIDI setup. Your percussion and vocals are panned from...
Louis likes it and plays it during training. Everyone enjoys the updated rhythm. He begins the lesson, but not all join. Shay, the quiet one, says they expected to learn to fight, not dance. Another kid mocks and slaps him, starting a fight. Louis stops it and ends class. Later, he asks Shay to stay.
Except you, Shay, you stay. What are you talking about? He started. I said you stay.
Louis spends the afternoon giving Shay a one-on-one lesson. That evening, Kerrigan sees the two bonding and is surprised by Shay's progress.
Hey, Mr. Kerrigan. And light and slow first one. Yeah. Good. All right. And this time hard.
The next day, Shay uses his new skills to defeat IE, his bully. IE can't get back up.
Let's go.
Now everyone wants to train. Louis helps Aya up and asks who's ready to learn. With no more bullying, the group joins in, even Aya. A few stay back, but it's a big step forward. Diana later joins them as they learn traditional instruments. Louis introduces the berimbau and explains the rota, the capoeira circle that teaches respect, strategy, and control. But Orlando isolates himself, irritated that the others enjoy it. Louis invites him to try, saying capoeira might be in his blood. Orlando takes offense.
Just because you read some files, you think you know about me?
But I'm trying to learn. That's why we're all here.
Well, what are we gonna learn, huh? What are you gonna teach us?
Almost lashing out, he storms off. That night, Louis finds him playing basketball in his neighborhood. He just wants to connect, but Orlando is defensive. Louis asks why he walked out. When the cousins step in, Louis challenges Orlando to speak for himself. Orlando mocks capoeira as pointless. Louis asks if drug running and car theft are better uses of his time.
Stealing cars and chopping them up?
Yeah, teacher, I do shit for my cousin. Everybody knows that.
Orlando says stripping cars helps pay rent. Capoeira doesn't. He defends Silverio for taking care of their neighborhood. Just then, Silverio shows up with his crew. Orlando warns Louis to leave. Louis simply asks if he'll be in class tomorrow.
We're gonna see you in class tomorrow. Hey, Sakana.
Before he knew it, Silverio attacked, but Louis held his own. Despite being outnumbered, he fought with grace and discipline, overpowering them. Silverio, now curious and slightly intimidated, took off his jewelry and stepped forward to fight. Silverio asked how much Louis was being paid at the school. He wanted to hire him to train his gang, who lacked capoeira skills and discipline. Silverio, dangerous yet perceptive, saw the value. But Louis declined, saying he had a roof over his head, and that was enough.
It's been quite a long time since I met a real-life Santo.
Annoyed, Silverio told Louis not to play games with someone raised in the worst parts of Rio de Janeiro. He promised they'd soon find out who the real capoeira master was. Turns out, Silverio himself was a skilled capoeirista, one who used it for fear and control. His power reached into the school and neighborhood. Many students either followed him or feared him. Soon, the fight began, with both showing off advanced techniques. Even Orlando was amazed. Silverio was cheered on by his crew, while Louis stood alone, backed only by his resolve. The battle leaned in Silverio's favor. He attacked relentlessly. Seeing Louis, his teacher, getting beaten, Orlando stopped cheering for his cousin, but Silverio kept going, pummeling Louis even as he lay defenseless. Staring at Orlando, he silently said, "I'm the real boss. You don't need teachers who lose to me." He stepped toward him and declared, "This guy's not good enough to teach my crew, but maybe he can teach you the basics." He warned Louis not to put ideas in Orlando's head. He had big plans for his little cousin. Feeling defeated, Louis went home and found Diana waiting outside the firehouse. Later, as he nursed his wounds with ice, she helped, though the moment felt more like bonding than healing. Turns out they used to date in high school, and the spark still lingered. She asked why he cared so much about the kids. Lewis replied, "If I can't do anything, then I have to live with it, and that sucks, because I can do something." She asked how his hand was doing, and Louis tried it out with some light acrobatics.
Oh my God! Louis, you're crazy!
He then challenged her to a handstand like they used to do in high school. Diana hesitated, but eventually agreed. As she attempted it, Louis joined her, and the moment turned unexpectedly romantic. One spark led to another, and they shared a passionate kiss, rekindling the connection they once had. The next day during training, Orlando put in the effort he used to lack, now motivated by his cousin's demand to learn properly from Louis. The group was now in sync, showing much more respect toward one another. Diana joined them, cheering everyone on. After practice, her co-worker Hector approached and asked about the rumors he'd heard that she and Louis used to date in high school. Diana didn't bother stopping to explain.
Although it probably wouldn't hurt for you to come down and see for yourself.
Later, Hector visited the firehouse and found Mr. Kerrigan and the principal observing the students. The once violent kids were now focused, disciplined, and visibly changed. Hector cynically remarked that they'd only found a more efficient way to give each other bloody noses. But the principal defended them, saying that without Lewis, things like nosebleeds would have escalated to gun violence, especially in Orlando's case. Louis had made them better.
And these were the 12 worst kids at Lincoln, the absolute bottom of the heap.
The principal went so far as to offer Louis whatever support he needed to expand the class, leaving Hector embarrassed. He added that capoeira should be taught citywide, across every school in the district. If it worked here, he said, God knows it'll work darn near everywhere.
God knows if it works in Lincoln, it'll work damn near anywhere. You shut up!
Soon, the principal brought in a production crew to film the kids during practice. The footage would be used to propose expanding the program to other schools, up to 1,200 students. Diana was present, and the principal praised Louis' impact.
If there's anything more I can do for you and the class, just name it.
Lewis requested to take the kids on a field trip, and soon they were on the road. Inside the bus, the students sang traditional music and chatted, just like any group of normal, happy high schoolers. They arrived at their destination late at night. Louis told them to get off the bus, but the kids were confused. It was pitch black, and they couldn't see anything. Louis insisted, but they refused and asked if there was a motel nearby. Louis had planned to set up tents by the beach, but since they couldn't see it, they decided to stay on the bus for the night and continue in the morning.
Ain't never tried to set up a tent, period.
Yeah, what are we, Indians?
Even Diana was uneasy, and Louis ended up alone. Disheartened, he told them he'd enjoy the beach by himself. Donovan initially considered going with him, but changed his mind when he saw how dark it was, and returned to the bus. With the windows closed, Louis and Diana spent the night inside. The next morning, Orlando was the first to wake. Through the window, he saw the beach and Louis stretching beside it. He quickly woke the others, and they all ran out to join him, stunned by the beautiful view they'd missed.
Wow. Look at this place.
Louis began teaching on the beach, and everyone had a great time. Diana took photos of every moment. Everything was improving. The kids' relationships, their discipline, their mutual respect. It felt like all these troubled youths had been missing was someone like Louis and his introduction to capoeira.
One more time, please. Okay.
That night, they set up tents and relaxed, enjoying each other's company. Louis asked Donovan where Orlando was. He pointed to the shore, where Orlando sat alone, deep in thought. Louis joined him, and Orlando confessed he should have been working for his cousin that weekend instead of coming on the trip. Louis encouraged him to think more of himself, but Orlando admitted he didn't believe he was good for anything but the illegal work he did for Silverio. Stripping cars was all he knew. Louis responded that the world could be as big or as small as Orlando chose. What Louis was offering was a choice.
This world can be about as big as you ever want it to be.
I'm here.
They returned to school after the trip, but as the bus pulled in, Silverio and his crew were waiting. Orlando stepped off nervously to confront his cousin. Silverio scolded him, asking if he forgot the job he had over the weekend. Orlando stood his ground, saying he respected him but wasn't his slave. That only made Silverio slap him across the face. Shay stepped in to defend him, but Silverio insulted and pushed him too. He ordered Orlando into the car to handle business, but this time Orlando resisted.
You got me in a bad mood already.
One way or another, you're getting in that car.
He's not going anywhere.
Louis intervened and told Silverio to back off. Orlando didn't want to go. Seeing Louis, Silverio realized it was him who'd planted new ideas in Orlando's head. Then, spotting Diana nearby, he became instantly interested in her.
And I'll take care.
Still, Silverio wouldn't back down. He claimed Orlando was no longer a student and now worked for him full-time. Louis stood firm, refusing to be intimidated. When one of Silverio's men tried to grab Orlando, Louis swiftly kicked him in the face. A fight was about to erupt again, but a police officer pulled up just in time. It turned out Silverio was under a restraining order and wasn't allowed within 100 yards of a school. He claimed he was just picking up his cousin, but Orlando suddenly agreed to leave with him, saying he couldn't go against family. Still, he promised to fix the misunderstanding later. Before they left, Silverio turned to Louis with one last warning.
You want to work with me, maestre? You're gonna get one.
That night, Silverio's gang held a violent capoeira ritual. They used the art only for intimidation and made a vow to crush the resistance growing within the school. The next day, they broke in undetected and vandalized everything they could. They shattered mirrors, wrecked equipment, damaged cars outside, and even threw students down the stairs, turning the school into a war zone. Meanwhile, in the parking lot, Silverio crept up behind Diana and frightened her.
Hi. How are you, cocina?
Though she clearly wasn't interested, he cornered her with his gang and delivered a message. If Louis wanted to take over his territory, he'd have to offer something in return. He harassed and traumatized her, but eventually let her go without further harm. Shortly after, in Mr. Kerrigan's classroom, the teacher walked in to find it being trashed by the gang. He tried to stop them with a punch. However, after Mr. Kerrigan threw the first punch, Silverio returned. Following a few missed swings, he ruthlessly knocked the old man to the ground. Once Kerrigan was down, Silverio poured gasoline all over the room, lit a book on fire, and set the place ablaze, leaving the unconscious teacher inside.
Adeus.
Meanwhile, Shay was in the dining hall when he noticed smoke and flames coming from Kerrigan's classroom window. He and a friend rushed over to help, only to find the room engulfed in fire, with Mr. Kerrigan barely conscious and lying on the floor. Without hesitation, they dragged him outside to safety. But just as they thought it was over, Donovan noticed a traditional capoeira instrument still inside. He ran back in to save it, but the smoke overwhelmed him. Unable to breathe, he collapsed. Shay tried to go after him, but the ceiling gave way, preventing any rescue. Lewis arrived at the school to find firefighters surrounding the building. Rushing inside, he discovered Donovan lying lifeless on the floor. Tragically, he had died from smoke inhalation. Louis was heartbroken over the loss of a good kid who had so much potential. News reporters began gathering outside as the principal arrived.
When the instructor of an experimental martial arts program reportedly crossed swords with local gang members.
The principal was deeply shaken by the accusations that the reformed students were responsible. He believed them. From his office, he angrily told Louis to never return. The kung fu experiment was over. Diana tried to speak up in Louis' defense, insisting the kids had changed, but the principal wouldn't listen. Devastated, Louis left the school grounds. On his way out, he found Shay on the soccer field. Louis approached, but Shay's coach called him to join class. Before leaving, Shay warned Louis that Silverio's gang was out looking for him. That night, Orlando visited Louis at the training center. He had a fresh scar on his face, clearly showing he'd had a rough encounter with his cousin. He came to warn Louis to leave Miami and go as far away as possible before it was too late.
You gotta leave, man. I mean, get out of Miami, out of Florida, far away as you can go.
Louis refused, saying he would defend himself. Orlando noticed a map with a red circle marking the car shop where Silverio ran his illegal operations. He asked Louis what he planned to do and warned him. The entire neighborhood feared Silverio. Even the police couldn't stop him. If Louis persisted, he might end up dead. But Louis, still grieving Donovan's death, said that someone had to act. When he asked Orlando if he even cared, Orlando admitted he just didn't want Louis to end up like him.
Man, I just don't want to see you ending up like him.
Determined to take Silverio down, Louis set out that night. Undetected, he entered the chop shop and found two men working on a car. He appeared from the shadows and attacked. Though they tried to defend themselves, they were no match for Louis's skill. He beat one of them against the car, knocking him out. The other grabbed a chainsaw, attempting to slash him, but Louis dodged with agile capoeira movements. One by one, Louis took them down with intense, furious precision, fighting harder than ever before. Fueled by anger and loss, he was unstoppable. Then, a man wielding a blowtorch stepped forward. His punches were powerful, and he wore a helmet, making him harder to hurt. Lewis dodged the flaming weapon and avoided a falling engine just in time. The attacker continued chasing him, landing multiple hits. But eventually, Lewis lured him under a car lift and dropped it, pinning him. With the final man subdued, Louis picked up a gasoline container and approached a car loaded with cash.
Hey! I got a message for your boss.
As a warning to Silverio, Louis tossed the fuel into the fire and ran out just before the entire shop exploded. Money, cars, everything destroyed. Later, Silverio arrived to see the destruction. Enraged and humiliated, he gathered his gang and ordered them to find Lewis. He wanted him alive, to end things that very night. Orlando, witnessing the aftermath, was told by Silverio to come and see for himself when Lewis was executed. Silverio stormed off with his crew.
2 meters on Macumba Grove. We'll find out once and for all who really owns this neighborhood.
Orlando took off to warn his friends. Shortly after, Silverio and his men arrived at Louis' training center, ready for the final confrontation. But Louis was waiting in the shadows. He took them out one by one before they even knew what hit them. As the rest followed the noise, Louis ambushed them from behind a car, leaping over it to land crushing blows. When more attackers arrived with machetes, he grabbed one and fought them off too. But the numbers became overwhelming. Eventually, Louis was knocked out. The gang could have killed him then, but Silverio ordered them to bring him in alive. They dragged him before their leader, ready for execution. But before Silverio could act, Louis' 12 students entered, all dressed in white, standing tall to defend their teacher.
What is this? Some kind of joke?
We're here to take our teacher back.
Though weak and beaten, Louis felt his spirit return. His efforts were not in vain. One gang member approached to intimidate a student, but the boy delivered a solid kick that silenced him. This infuriated the rest, and chaos nearly erupted. That's when Silverio stepped forward and warned the students to leave before they got seriously hurt. He especially threatened Orlando and told him to go home.
And you! I will deal with you later.
Deal with me now, primo.
Silverio continued mocking, but out of nowhere, Orlando kicked him in the face. Silverio struck back, sending him flying. The climactic battle had begun, a final duel between two capoeira masters, one who used the art for peace and one for fear. The fight was fierce and visually stunning. They matched each other's moves in an epic showdown, using every corner of the scrapyard. But Louis, driven by purpose and guided by discipline, gained the upper hand. He defeated Silverio not by killing him, but by overpowering and humiliating him in front of his gang, breaking the illusion of his dominance. With Silverio crushed, the gang's control over the school dissolved. Soon, a police helicopter arrived and the gang scattered. As order was restored, an officer recognized Louis and asked who the man on the ground was. Orlando answered, his name is Silverio. He's the one who started the fire, and he's the one who killed Donovan.
He's my cousin. He's the guy who started the fire at the school.
The film ends on a note of hope. The capoeira program thrives, now with dozens of students involved. In the final scene, Louis leads a joyful, vibrant class in the schoolyard. His original 12 students now help teach the newcomers. These kids have traded violence for discipline, fear for community. Thanks to capoeira and thanks to Louis, they've found a new path, one built on strength of mind and heart.